Hello, everybody. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the Computer America Show. Actually, this is our little pre-show, behind-the-scenes, pre-video here for those who are watching the live video stream. Got a great show planned for you tonight. In the second hour, well, actually, our first hour guest might stay over to the second hour, but if he doesn't, then we'll have Computer and Technology News brought to you by Slimware Utilities. They are the official optimization software of Computer America. However, our first hour guest is with Digital Trends. He is the computing editor for Digital Trends, and his first time here on the show. Matthew Smith is going to be here. We're going to be talking about Windows 10 and things like, how does Windows 10 compare to a Mac? Questions, PC games made better for Windows 10.
Until showtime.
And then in the second hour, he's got some very interesting stories we're going to take a closer look at, like Intel Skylake, but is it the right thing for you? And Intel versus AMD, and a lot of great stories that he's written, some of them very controversial, and that's what we like here on the show. So sit back, relax, enjoy 2 hours of Computer America coming straight at you. We'll be starting momentarily. "15 seconds.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live, it's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America.
The Computer America Show is brought to you by Bell Ringers. It's newer than news when you're right there as it first debuts. Visit our sponsor's website at bellringersmedia.com. Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. It's the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. Computer America is heard around the world and coast to coast. And I'm your host, Craig Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Ben.
And then welcome to Hump Day. It's the middle of the week. Here we are. And thank you so much for all of you who are here with us tonight. We got a terrific show planned for you. Now, let me just say that our first hour guest it's his first time here on the show, and I'm very excited to have him on the program. He's a very interesting writer, author, and he has some great stories we're going to be talking about. And the first, Digital Trends is here. And we're going to be talking to the computing editor, Matthew Smith, right? I mean, they have lots of different editors, but this is the guy. He's the computing editor. And
seems right up our alley.
He's right up our alley, exactly. And so we're going to be talking to him. And if you want to speak with him, if you have a comment or a question about anything we're talking about tonight, you can give us a call, 347-884-8881. That's 347-884-8881. We'll get you on and get you through. If you're radio shy and you don't want to go on the air, I know a lot of you will feel that way. I know Ben's like that. You can you can contact us via our website. We have a special thing set up there. If you go to the website, ComputerAmerica.com, that's our internet home. Up in the right-hand side, right-hand corner of every page that's there, it'll just say Submit Your Question. And you just click that, and it'll take you to a special question submission page. There you put your email address, your name, the name of the guest for whom your question is intended, and then you put your question in. Click the Submit button, and both Ben and I will see your question, and then we can ask it right on the air. It's that simple. Okay. The other nice thing that we have at ComputerAmerica.com is our show lounge. Again, this is right on the menu bar that's on it's on every page. And if you click the show lounge, what will happen is that our live video stream will begin. That's right, since we are a radio talk show, have been for over 24 years, but now we are streaming our live video right there at computeramerica.com. It'll start up automatically. You won't have to do a thing, and you'll see it. And the nice thing about the live video is because you'll see me, you can see Ben. Many times you can see our guest. You'll be able to see our guest tonight. But also, when the guest is talking about something on the internet, maybe their website or a product or a video, Ben has the technology to reduce his large head to a little tiny head into the corner of the screen, and in the background you can see everything going on. You can watch videos, you can see the website, so you'll actually be able to see as well as listen to the Computer America show and everything that's relevant. So it's just a lot of fun, and we encourage all of you to join in, okay? And it's all happening at computeramerica.com. Anything else you want to mention, Ben, before we get started on the show tonight?
No. Just looking through the news of the day, there's some good stuff. But no, just I think you mentioned did you mention the contest tonight?
No, I did not mention the contest. We have our Computer America. It's our social media contest. You can go to the website computeramerica.com, and you'll just go right to one of the under the interact menu. It says social contest, media contest. We're giving away every week. We give away a Logitech Anywhere MX2 wireless mouse. Okay, and it is a gorgeous mouse, and it's valued at $80. And every Friday we give that away. So head over to computeramerica.com and enter our social media contest. It's real simple to do, and we invite you to participate. Okay. Well, that said, let's get to it. As I mentioned, Matthew Smith is here. He's a writer, computing guru, gamer, and geek hailing from Portland, Oregon. He is the editor of Digital Trends Computing section. Now, it's written in plain English by experts, featuring timely and entertaining coverage of the way technology is shaping our lives. Digital Trends is your authoritative guide to the world around us. They love, live, and breathe tech so that they can explain it to you simply and clearly. Tech should be a tool to better our lives and create incredible experiences. Digital Trends helps get you there. Matt, welcome into Computer America. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing quite well. Thank you.
And thank you for being here on the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I gave you a little introduction, but just give us a little background of about yourself. I'd love to hear it.
Well, I've been a computer geek pretty much all my life. I think I got my first computer when I was around 10 or so, and really it just started there. I started playing games on it. I was like, this is awesome. Made a few basic websites back when GeoCities was a thing. And then went on to build my own computer, and that got me interested in writing about technology. And at this point, I've been writing about computers for about 6 years.
Okay, well, that's a long time. 6 years. What got you interested? You were always interested from as a kid in computers?
Did you find yourself always right, and you're like, other people have to know how right I am?
Yeah, well, that is always, I think, a factor when you're writing on the internet. But I got my first computer. My mom purchased it. She was like, these computer things are going to be big, and we should have one, and you should learn to use it. And
Mom knew.
Turned out she was right.
Mom knew. Yes, exactly.
Very forward-thinking of her.
Exactly. Okay. Well, as I said, we're going to get into a lot of it. And,
wait. Before we even jump into that, 10 years old video game. What was your first video game, or your first series of video games?
I think the first one that I ever played on the PC was probably MechWarrior 2, because that came in the Sony pack that came with the Sony computer. The first one that I was really into that I can recall was Interstate 76, which is a little bit more obscure. I believe it was built off the MechWarrior engine. I think it was the same game engine, but you had cars. You were fighting with cars, and you had custom slots for the cars, and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. All right. Just gamers usually remember their first video game, so I always find it interesting to ask.
There it is. Okay.
I do. I remember it well.
So, Matt, what we're going to, I think the road plan for tonight's show is we're going to start talking about Windows 10. Obviously, it's here now. It's made its debut on the 29th of July, and people are starting to get it. Millions of people are starting to use it. And we're going to discuss Windows 10 for most of the first hour, and then, as I said, if there's time, we'll start talking about some of the other articles. But we'll just play it, by the seat of our pants. And so let's start off. And I guess the key question to ask is, okay, Windows 10 is here, so should you upgrade to Windows 10?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
it is free, for Windows 7, Windows 8, and 8.1 users. It's just a free upgrade, and there's really not any particular reason to stick with the older operating system.
Okay, so you're saying resistance is futile. We should go ahead and do it.
Yeah, resistance is futile, and since it is free now, that drops a pretty big barrier. In the past, people were like, I don't want to upgrade because I don't want to spend $120, or well, I think with Windows 8 they actually lowered it to like $50. But in any case, they want to spend money to upgrade. Well, now you don't have to. So.
Okay, so that's a good thing. Obviously, it doesn't cost you. But will it cost us in another way? I mean, is Windows 10 turning out to be everything that they're saying? I mean, or are we going to pay for it in some other way?
The way you said that, I thought you were about to say, but is Windows 10 taking our children from us? Get the spin on it.
It's a really great operating system, in my experience, which has been quite a bit because they did the Insiders program. Yeah. You could start using Windows 10. It was like late last year, and I've been using it pretty much ever since it was available. It's come a long way, really. The early builds were pretty rough, but now it's a great operating system that does a lot of things for just the regular desktop that you didn't have access to before.
And you see, this is the consensus of most. We have numerous correspondents here on the show. We have Michael Miller. I mean, he hated he hated Windows 8. I mean, he couldn't stand it. They took it, and he would come on here and bemoan, the fact that he had to use Windows 8. And then 8.1 came out, and he felt a little better. But he still hated the operating.
He was hurt. On an emotional level, he was hurt by 8.1.
But Windows 10, and he loves it, and because it gave him the start menu back and then some, and it seems to be the general consensus of most users today, and that Windows 10 is going to be Microsoft's shining star. And it took a while to get here, but thank goodness that it's here. What are the requirements for upgrading to Windows 10, Matt?
As far as the system requirements, the hardware?
Yeah.
They are identical to Windows 8. Except I think it requires slightly more hard drive space. I think it went from like 16 to 20 gigabytes. But that's just off memory. I'm not exactly sure. Processor, RAM, graphics, that's all the same as it was before. So if you're running Windows 8, if you're running Windows 7 even, then the hardware specifications are practically the same.
All right, good. All right, so it's going to be a painless to upgrade. It's free, and so I'm going to start asking this question. This is the obvious thing. What is the best new features of Windows 10? What do you like about Windows 10's?
I think what has been my favorite new feature has been they call it Task View, which is, if anyone's a Mac user, you're probably familiar with Mission Control / Expose. And it's very similar to that. You get a bunch of thumbnails of all your open windows. And that makes it extremely easy to figure out what you want to switch to when you're multitasking. It also works with the snap feature, where if you put a window over the one side of your monitor, it automatically snaps to exactly half of your available monitor space, which has always been a great way to put two windows side by side. And now when you do that, your other side of your monitor shows Task View, and you can pick exactly what you want out of all these thumbnails. Also, there's virtual desktops with that, so if you want to have like different desktops going with different sets of windows open, you can do that. It's really great for anyone that has a lot of windows open at once.
Now, and by the way, for those of you who are watching the live video stream, Ben is actually demonstrating that. I assume now that means, Ben, you have Windows 10. And
no, this is actually a picture of the art.
A picture of the art.
Coming from tonight is this article that Matt actually wrote. So.
All right, good. So there it is, the image of what it looks like. So the little tiny screens, and you're right, it is very Mac-like. Mac actually, there's one of the keys on the keyboard allows you to reduce everything down. So they're side by side, and then you pick the screen that you want, and it actually brings that screen to the foreground. Or so if a window, let's say, is hidden behind another open window, that will reveal it, and then you can click on it and bring it to the foreground and then work with it. So that is one of your you think it's one of the best new features of Windows 10.
Definitely, yeah. And you can do that either through a keyboard shortcut or through there's now a button on the taskbar, so they make it pretty easy for you to figure out, whichever way you want to do it. It's quite easy.
Now, do you think they're going to design Windows key for upcoming systems? They're going to be, for Windows 10, they're going to actually have a button, like they have the Windows key, on the keyboards. They're going to have
like a task view key.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about that. I know that a couple manufacturers had been saying some things about a Cortana button, which is another feature about Windows 10 we can talk about. But I haven't heard anything about a task view button.
Okay. Well, I'm sure, though, there are ways of assigning keys, different functions.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
So
there's all kinds of software for that.
Window keys T or whatever they're going to make it. It's pretty common.
Okay, so then the flip side. That's the best new feature. What's the worst feature of Windows 10?
Probably the web browser. Surprise, surprise.
Wow.
Microsoft's having some problems with the web browser. Yeah, so they made a big deal out of it. They sort of made it one of the big new features, or like, we're going to make this lean, agile web browser that's very modern. And in practical terms, once what they've created doesn't really seem that much different. I mean, it looks different. It definitely has a different aesthetic to it. But functionally, it's still a web browser. It's still missing some features people would want. In fact, it doesn't even support extensions right now, which is kind of a big deal, in my opinion. I don't see why anyone would want to use a web browser without extensions. So
yeah, obviously, extensions are little modules for our listeners that to give it your browser additional abilities, or make things work more smoothly, and that, I noticed that too. I thought that was just because this is the first version of Microsoft Edge, and I thought maybe later on they were going to include it. Are you saying that they are going to include it later, or is Microsoft saying, hey, we're not going to have extensions in Edge, or is that still out?
They're going to have extensions in Edge eventually.
All right.
That's the plan. But they don't have any sort of date on when that's going to happen right now. They're saying towards the end of the year, but there's not anything firm on that.
Now, is there something about Microsoft Edge that the browser that's going to, if you use it, you're going to have something that like that you can't get with other browsers? I mean, that Internet Explorer was that way. It had was a DirectX, and it had some things that you could not get in other browsers. And are they doing that with Edge too? Is there any kind of unique features to it that you can't get with?
I don't think so. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that is absolutely unique to Edge.
All right.
No, I can't think of anything.
Yeah, usually whenever a company comes out with a browser, and I look to Google on this one, like they usually offer some sort of increased flexibility and integration across all their products. And so, of course, if you use Gmail with Chrome and all that kind of stuff, like it all just syncs together very, very nicely and very, very neatly. So, as of right now, because the new update for the Xbox One hasn't come out, and this is just kind of fresh because the Edge didn't even come out on beta until about 2 months ago. So, do you think it's possible in the future that if you use a Windows 10 system and you have other Windows 10 devices, that could they position Edge to be the completely fully integrated browser that you would want to use? Because if they don't have any added integration, then there's really no point in not using Chrome or Firefox.
Yeah, there isn't really any point in not using Chrome or Firefox. They could do that. They have plenty of cloud infrastructure. They have the Microsoft account since Windows 8, and that would be an easy way to get everything going together. One thing they do that I guess is unique, I just thought of, is you can clip things to OneNote. So if you're a OneNote user, you can clip a portion of a website to OneNote. You can also do some markup on it. to just write a note or something like that. So they could do that. I think the problem Microsoft has is that it's just so easy to do that with the other browsers anyway, that having that baked into Edge, even if it did, it would be nice, but it's still playing catch up, right? Like, these are things other browsers have done for quite some time, and to get Edge to really make people want to use it, it needs to do something that's really interesting and new, and that's not really here.
Okay. All right. Okay. So
well, actually, that was kind of funny because we've been seeing the commercials for Windows 10, and they are really aiming it towards kids. Of course, this is back to school season. Windows 10 computers are coming back out, and one of the features was the one that you just mentioned, was that you could kind of doodle over web pages, and pretty much every correspondent that we've had on in the past 2 months sees that feature, and they're like, why?
I can see why. It's just that it doesn't really work that well anyway. We pointed this out in our review that, yeah, you can write notes on web pages, but there's really not much in the way of layers or precise inputs. It's very, very basic. You can essentially just highlight a few things and then put a note on it that says some words that you want to keep in mind, but that's it. There's not anything any more advanced than that. And I believe there's extensions for other browsers that will do things like that anyway. So
yeah.
Now, with that, when you make a comment on a web page and then you close the browser and you open it up and you go back to that web page, will those notes reappear? Is it specific to each page, those notes or markups?
I believe you have to save it to OneNote to make it reappear.
Okay. But when you do, then when you open up that same page again, it won't appear until you open that same page and those notes come up?
I'm not certain that the notes will come up automatically or if you have to select it in OneNote.
Okay.
So I don't remember exactly how that works.
Okay. All right. So all right. So now we have the best and the worst of Windows 10, and I'm sure there's a lot in the middle that we can talk about. But you asked some intriguing questions here, and I'm going to ask it of you because we have about 10 more minutes before the bottom of the hour. How does Windows 10 compare to a Macintosh?
Okay. Well, compared to a Macintosh, I think that a lot of things are still pretty much the same as far as like whether you'd want to use one or the other. I think that the addition of Task View and a few other multitasking features has really solidified Windows 10 as being the desktop operating system. I don't think there's any argument that an iMac or the MacBook is a wonderful piece of hardware. But the actual operating system, Windows 10, I think, has an edge on OS X for the time being.
Really? Okay. So you think that Windows 10 is going to be better than Mac OS 10? Because right now, where are we? They were on Yosemite, and they just introduced the new one, which is
El Capitan, which I've also used quite a bit. And isn't really that much different from Yosemite. I loved Yosemite. I loved Yosemite. And at the time that came out, Windows 10 was not out. I would have said Mac OS X is the desktop operating system. But Windows 10 fixes the things that were bad and adds a lot of new features and has pretty much just retaken the crown for the time being.
For the time being. So it's back and forth, okay?
It really is these days, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in other words, is it that radical that people who own Macs are going to go out and sell their Macs and now buy a Windows 10 machine, or?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay.
So you're not going to see people taking their iMac, taking it back to the Apple Store, and like put Windows on this.
No. The biggest problem is that Mac OS X, even if it's not quite as good as Windows 10 in some ways, Macs are still awesome. So you can't, you get a Mac because you want a Mac hardware and software.
Now, one of the things about the Mac is that it was sort of a closed system, and that when people wrote software for the Mac, you knew it was going to work. But now, do you think with the advent of Windows 10, can we say that with Windows 10 as well?
That it is a closed system?
No.
Or
Things are going to work better. I mean, you know, or more smoothly, I guess.
well, they should. I mean, over the long term, we have to see how things pan out. But there's nothing about Windows 10 that's dramatic, like underneath the skin, that would cause a lot of compatibility issues. Programs that work in Windows 7 and Windows 8 should generally work in Windows 10 without a problem. There's always going to be speed bumps here or there, but you know, for the most part, you're not going to run into any issues with compatibility.
So Microsoft didn't throw everything out with the baby out with the bathwater when they had the Windows 10. In other words, it was not a total rewrite. They kept certain components from Windows 7 and Windows 8.1, and then just worked on the GUI to make it all kind of come together.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, we're still, you know, have the bones of Windows Vista underneath all of this. You know, remember that operating system was not well received, but some of the basics of it worked out pretty well, and yeah, so program compatibility shouldn't really be an issue.
Okay.
Though, you know, one thing that I had a question, and then I think we passed over, you know, the topic, or I, you know, blacked out for a second. But one of the worst features of Windows 10, and this is hitting all the different websites I look at today. What is up with Windows 10 and DVDs?
In DVDs, I don't know. What were you seeing specifically?
Yeah, what I was saying was that to play DVDs in Windows 10, you needed a specific app, and that app was not available, but now it's available, but it costs $15 from the Windows App Store.
You're talking about Windows Media Player was eliminated.
Yeah, Windows Media Player was eliminated. They took that out.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably... I know that's not the most popular decision because I got comments on multiple articles saying, you know, that I'm not going to upgrade the Windows 10 because they don't have Windows Media Player anymore.
Well, they don't.
For me, it's not an issue because geez, you know, like I don't know when I last played an actual DVD on a computer, but you know, I can see, you know, if you still had an optical drive and you did do a lot of that, you might have to buy another program to do that.
I just say Netflix.
Yeah.
Most content nowadays is streamed. It's very rare to find a DVD and go put it in your computer.
It does happen every now and then, though, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well,
you know, that was the only thing, was that because the Windows Media Player is gone, they do have an app to play DVDs. It's in the Windows App Store. By the way, I don't think we've touched on the Windows App Store, but regardless, $15, and of course, you can always, as we recommended a few days ago on the show, go get VLC Player, and that does the same thing.
Yeah, that has always been, I think, the enthusiast solution. Just go get VLC Player.
Exactly. Even on my Macintosh, when I'll get something that, or I get a file that just won't play in QuickTime or you know, any of the plugins for QuickTime, and it just won't work. As a last resort, I'll just fire up a VLC, and like 99.99% of the time, it plays the file. You know, so it's a great little program, and it's available, you know, for both Linux and Windows and Mac. It's just it's a terrific program. It's a good a last resort if you need to have that.
Yeah, and I think that's why Microsoft probably gave up. There's so many good, you know, not just VLC, but there's so many good ways to play your media now, or the transcode media or the record media that it wasn't really necessary for most users anymore.
It's getting to be, it's like, you know, why own a DVD anymore? You know, you just basically you know, download the or go a service, go to a streaming service.
And then, of course, out there somewhere, there's a vocal minority that is still screaming about their pile of floppy disks that they're trying to play.
I always tell people I have this friend or acquaintance that I know, and he's got rooms full of DVDs, and I look at that and I just kind of shake my head and I go, you know, you need to get into the 21st century. I mean, because streaming is the way to go. I mean, even with iTunes, Apple's iTunes, and now they have Apple Music. I mean, you don't even have to own the file now. You just use the streaming service, and you get it when you need it. And how many times are you going to watch the same movie? You know, you watch a movie, maybe twice, and it's done. If you have a DVD, now you have this thing.
Yeah, he is a collector.
Yeah, collector.
A lot of laptops don't even have DVD drives anymore, so
Yeah.
it's not even an option.
Yes, or floppy disks for that matter. I think
Yeah, I don't think there's any with floppy disk anymore.
Yeah,
we will fact check that, but I believe you're right.
You know, the saying is, you give it up. Come on, move along. This is the way of the times. You can stay anchored in this older technology, and the life is going to pass you by, and you don't want that to happen to you.
A little dark in here.
I know. Anyhow, so basically, now when we come back, we still have some more questions about Windows 10, like, for example, PC games. Are they somehow made better when you use them with Windows 10?
That is a good one.
And of course, the one thing that Windows 8 and 8.1 tried to conquer, which was the mobile scenario, and how does Windows 10 stack up in the mobile space?
Yeah, there's a lot to say about that for sure.
Yeah, does it make your tablet better, using Windows 10? And also, we're going to ask you things like, are there any new computers that are specifically built for Windows 10? And so we got all those questions we're going to be asking. We got some callers coming in as well, so we're going to take some questions. We're talking to Matthew Smith. He is the computing editor for Digital Trends. We're going to take a little break, and then we'll be right back with them. We also have a brand News Tips Bulletin Review by Marty Winston. I always love those. We're going to have one in each hour. We're going to be hearing that. In the meantime, you listen to the Computer America program. Ben and I are going to be right back after these commercial messages. Yes, Ben, I need you to do that. We'll be right back. This is Computer America. Don't go anywhere.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons. Accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons. Accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. I want to tell you something about VTech. They always have the coolest telephone systems around. VTech's new 4-line small business phone system, the perfect solution for small business owners that need to install a phone system that has qualities and features that have previously only been available for companies with bigger budgets. First of all, this new system is the most affordable and easy to install 4-line phone system on the market. Its components allow the system to grow alongside a business up to 10 extensions that can be located anywhere. The 4-line small business phone system also comes equipped with a number of advanced features such as auto attendant for each line, a digital answering machine with mailboxes for every extension, full duplex speakerphones, music on hold, power failure operation, 6-way conferencing, and much, much more. The VTech 4-line small business phone system is available in stores and online at Office Depot, Office Max, and Staples, as well as online at www.vtechphones.com. Tell them I sent you.
You made it through security okay? Marty Winston with the News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America. This time, the Rack Solutions Vented Rack Shelf. We asked Rack Solutions to send 2 of their 7-inch vented rack shelves, a popular configuration for 2-post relay racks that we intend for a net connection rack. In surveying the gear we wanted to include in that rack, a lot of pieces were built more for a desktop stack, an inevitably wobbly, teeter-tottery, precarious pile, and our reason for populating a rack. for most rack gear, things like network switches or power backups or power distribution products, ears on the side of that gear have holes that let you screw them right into the upright rails to hold them in position. Non-rack gear, like home control hubs and smaller network pieces and other things designed for the desktop, well, they're built without ears. A vented rack shelf can fit several such little boxes. The venting encourages airflow to help vent heat and can make tie-downs easier, or you can use a strip of Velcro underneath. Bottom line, Rack Solutions 7-inch vented rack shelves help convert a wobbly stack to an organized rack. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 33 minutes past the hour. Thank you, Marty Winston, for that News Tip Bulletin review. And yeah, we are talking to Mr. Matt Smith, computer editor for Digital Trends. And we're talking all about Windows 10 right now. In the first half hour, we did a pretty good overview of a lot of the features. Although we should also mention some of the differences out there between Windows 8 and 8.1, Windows 7, and Windows 10. One very obvious thing that people are going to pick up on when they finally do decide to upgrade is that automatic updates. They're mandatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. It's a pretty big change and a bit of a controversial one.
Yeah, because before they were optional, and now at least with the Windows 10 Home, you have to do it. Now with the Pro version, I understand they understand that IT people don't want to update immediately because it might break something, or so that gives them an option of eventually updating. I think it gives them 8 weeks or something to update.
8 months.
8 months. I know there's an 8 somewhere. Okay, so 8 months to before they do the upgrade. But if you have Windows 10 Home, guess what? You're being updated, and no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I guess it's Microsoft's a way of saying, we want everybody to be uniform. We want the same operating system out there. We don't want different versions floating around. What's your take on that, Matt?
I think it's generally a good idea. People don't want to update for various reasons, and usually those reasons are not as good as the argument for updating. Updating not only gives you new features, but it's also very important from a security standpoint. It's also, I think, has to do with why Windows is free, because my understanding from some things that Microsoft has said is that they're kind of using the home versions as a little bit of a beta test. You have your Insider version.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Windows Insider, then you get everything first before anyone else, and you're at the absolute leading edge. Then you have your home users. They have to be mandatory updated to new things as well. And last, you have your Pro and Enterprise editions if they're opting out of the updates. So they have sort of a chance to see, hey, did that update a few months ago result in any unforeseen issues or not?
Did these guinea pigs fall over dead before we did
exactly, and it makes a lot of sense when you look at Microsoft's financials, because they make a lot more money from enterprise licensing than they do from consumer licensing. So they want to make sure those enterprise customers have the stablest version of Windows possible.
Okay, makes sense. So we kind of teased a couple of these questions, and I want to kind of move into them here. Again, Ben being the gaming expert, and
yeah, definitely.
PC games, are they made somehow better with Windows 10?
Not right off the bat. There are some. The big feature is DirectX 12, which is only going to be available if you have Windows 10. That's the new graphics API. It makes new things possible with 3D graphics that weren't possible before. And the thing is, though, that because it's just now out, of course, no one's out there no one's developing games for a version of Windows that 2% of people have at this point. Mm-hmm. So you're not really going to see games that have DirectX 12 functionality until next year is when you'll start to see them start to come out, from some studios. But it'll take a few years before that really catches on in its entirety.
Well, because software is always the last thing to develop. it takes longer. I mean, you can come out with new hardware all the time.
Yeah.
It's the software that takes the time to develop. And obviously, existing games though, are we going to see any difference with?
Yeah, I thought DirectX 12 actually had some measurable boost in performance over DirectX 11.
It does in certain scenarios, but you're not going to see that in your DirectX 11 games.
Okay.
Okay. So if I'm playing games right now and I update to Windows 10, I'm not going to see any difference, is what you're saying.
You're not going to see any difference. We did some performance tests at Digital Trends when we ran Windows 10 and did the review. We did not see any noticeable difference in game performance, negative or positive, between that and Windows 8. So
you did the benchmarks, and there it is. That's one of the nice things working, for a magazine, because you have people performing all these ancillary functions, and then you can report on them.
You don't know until you run the tests, and then that's really the only way to determine. You can't really eyeball that.
Okay. But games that have come out for Direct 12, you're saying, are we going to be blown away by them? Or are we just going to see some subtle differences? What's going to happen?
We might be blown away from them a little bit, yeah. It's hard to say exactly, but DirectX 12 is basically it gives developers more control over how the graphics are brought to the user, and that means more potential for optimization. It also reduces some overhead in certain cases, so there in theory should be the possibility of having a lot more stuff on screen at once before you start the drag down performance.
What about
so it could be a big impact.
Support for things like 4K monitors, that type of thing? Are we going to see better graphics?
For games, it's not really going to make any difference having DirectX or having Windows 10. But Windows 10 actually does make some pretty big improvements on how the desktop looks on 4K and above monitors. So
really? Okay. So
yeah,
it takes advantage. So Windows 10 will recognize that you have a 4K monitor, and then will expand the desktop, make it bigger. The icons will look different. What are we going to see?
Well, there's quite a few different subtle changes. You have more scaling options, so you can go up to like 400% scale, make things 400% bigger than you could before. The way the text is rendered makes it appear crisper in most of the interface compared to Windows 8. It's a pretty big difference sometimes. It appears that they have added higher resolution icons for a lot of the icons in the Windows operating system, so those look better than they did before. And those sort of things are really noticeable when you're using it on 4K.
I understand Windows is following the Apple's cue, is that their icons are becoming anti-skeuomorphic. In other words, Apple does all this innovation that Microsoft kind of isn't also ran. But I mean, I'm still glad that they're doing it. But the icons are supposed to be cleaner and flatter, and again, as a result of that, are easily more scalable. Correct?
That's right. That's right. You could make an argument, I think, that Apple copied Microsoft.
Okay.
Because I think the original flat UI was actually Windows Phone. I think that they got to it first. I think you could make an argument that that Windows Phone, it was like Android copied that a bit, and then Apple copied that a bit, and then Microsoft copied that back a bit, and so that's how Windows 10 came about to look like it the way it does.
Okay, all right.
So what you're saying is no one was the original. Everyone just copies each other to the point where...
It's just a cycle, and everyone, depending on who you're the biggest fan of, that's the original.
Makes sense.
All right. So now, are we going to see new computers coming out that are specifically built for Windows 10? I think we did a news story about Acer. I think where they came out with a laptop. It was like $170 or something.
Yeah, it's a laptop in the same kind of idea as a Chromebook, where it's centered around one operating system and has very, very limited hard drive space and capabilities, because most of it is, most of the processing is done in the cloud. So but that's like the first one I've seen. You know, we're of course kind of wondering if there are others or if you know more about that kind.
There are some. It's sort of a tricky question because, you know, it's going to come a point where you can't get laptops without Windows 10 pretty quickly. There are some laptops that are alleging features that are Windows 10 only. Like I mentioned, the Cortana button earlier. We're probably going to see some stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then there's that Acer you mentioned, which it's really just a netbook style Windows system. Mm-hmm. But because you have OneDrive, and I believe Acer also does its own cloud storage stuff, you just get to lower the cost by not having as much of a hard drive there, and etc. So there'll be a few things, but it's not going to be anything major. There's not going to be like a laptop that comes out for Windows 10 that's going to be like, oh, that's the Windows 10 laptop. Well, except for the Microsoft Surface Pro 4. Whenever that comes around. But aside from that, you're not really going to see a Windows 10 laptop.
Okay, but I guess the Windows 10, they'll all have the touch screens. I mean, everything, they're going to take advantage of the touch interface.
Yeah, I actually, you know, touch is funny because that started to go out of style. You know, I noticed in the last year, you know, a lot of laptops actually dropped touch screens, especially even some high-end laptops drop the touchscreen, and I don't know if we're going to see that come back to be quite as popular as it was. There's, you know, it really, I guess, depends on what consumers want.
Yeah, they kind of kicked it off, and it might have gotten, you know, it felt like 3D television when that first came out. It started appearing in televisions, and it was everywhere, but consumers were like, I really don't care about that because there's not a lot of content. So, and it's probably the same for touchscreen. Like, it's great for video games, and in certain use cases, it has its place. But in general, when you're using a computer, you know, everyone still always refers back to the mouse and the keyboard.
Well, you know, and they had appeared in some of the all-in-ones too. You would see they had the all-in-ones had the touchscreen, but it's like anything else. You're sitting at your desk, and so now you're reaching up to do this Whereas with the mouse, it's your arm gets tired after a while.
It does, yeah, it does. Yeah, and I think that's been true for the all-ones and the two-in-ones. You know, there's just hasn't really been that system that made people go, oh, yeah, you're right. I actually do want my Windows computer to also be my Windows tablet, and to just have, you know, that be what I use every day. That hasn't happened yet.
It's all these different interfaces they try, and it sounds great. I mean, remember the Leapfrog? It was a little box that you put in front of you, and you could just use hand motions in the air, you know, and to substitute your mouse. And it would just it was able to read your hand motions, and you could do 10-finger things, and it was really and that phased out kind of quickly. You know, it looked great. It was cool, you know, and it was about $150, something like that. I don't know if you remember the Leapfrog, but
yeah.
Leap Motion, excuse me, Leap Motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, not Leapfrog.
I believe I reviewed that, actually. Okay. I didn't give it a very good score.
Yeah, and you did not give it a good score? You did?
No.
Well, there it is. You see, and it didn't. It got pretty much unfavorable reviews from editors such as yourself, and one of our co-hosts purchased one, and he was enthusiastic for a while, but then 2 weeks later I said, so how's it going with, you know, your Leap Motion? He said, oh, we'll put it away.
The video looked good. It promised to do a lot, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't fine-tuned enough. Like, it wasn't precise enough to, you know, do what it's sold, especially at like $40.
Yeah, and HP actually built it into some of their laptops. I mean, they had a thing with the...
Yeah, they did.
They did, so it was into laptops. So now they have these people with laptops probably never using that. They're just using their mouse, and it just kind of fizzled. You know, I guess you never know. You see something, it looks really cool, really great, and it looks, but then it's not accepted for some reason. It just doesn't work in the real world. Anyhow, all right. So don't expect to see any new computers specifically written developed for Windows 10.
Other than all of them.
Yeah. Eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how that question cuts both ways.
Yeah.
There's none of them and all of them.
So one of the things that we heard about Windows 10, it was that this was going to be Microsoft's last version? Was it going to be Windows 10 forever?
Oh, wait. Actually, but before you get into that, I think we actually skipped over Windows 10 and how it works in the mobile space. For tablets and smartphones.
Okay. Well, we can get back to that too.
Okay.
And we'll get back to that. But since I already asked the question, Windows 10 forever, in other words, because it's going to have all these updates that are being pushed to you, and you're always going to have the latest version. Microsoft, it's going to be Windows 10, for the next, who knows, 50 years or something. Do you think that that's what they're going to do, or do you think that's going to be something? There will be a Windows 11 or Windows 12?
I think I would be really surprised if they never came out with a Windows thing that was called something else at some point. I know Microsoft is very, insistent at right now that Windows 10 is it, and they don't want you to think about anything else that might be following up. And it makes sense because, this is the same thing that Mac has been doing forever now, right? We're still on OS 10, which has been around for, 15 years now, maybe a little less than that. And they come out with a new version every year. And Microsoft kind of wants to do the same thing with quick updates, but I think that they're probably at some point going to come out with a different version.
Do you think that's going to be a marketing thing rather than a technological thing, Matt? Or do you think?
It's hard to say. I think it could become a marketing thing, but I also think that it's probably naive to say this is the last version of anything. It's technology. There's going to be something's going to happen eventually where it's going to be like, oh, yeah, we didn't think about that, and what we have now doesn't really work with that, so we have to come up with something new.
Yeah. What I think I have beaten into our listeners' ears over the past couple months, where this idea of Windows Forever or Windows, this is the final one, Windows the final countdown, it's that even if technologically they could keep adding code, taking away code, fixing code, and just from a technology point of view, always improve, adapt, and just Windows 10 is it. From a marketing standpoint, 5 years down the road, everyone's just going to feel tired of Windows 10, regardless if they could update it and keep it fresh, just from the way people perceive it, just the way it's sold. From a marketing standpoint, how good does Windows 11? How good does that sound 5 years down the road? It's just going to happen.
Yeah, or they could go the the Mac route and just do a Windows 10.10. And it would be or a Windows 10.1 and 10.2 and up to 10.10 or 11 or whatever. It's hard to say, but I think there will be some other branded version of Windows.
What was it? What was it you said? I'm thinking of the Xbox One. You said something. It was going to be the Windows Infinity, or it was the Xbox Infinity.
That's what I was thinking. The Xbox One was going to be called, was the Infinity, because someone made Windows 8 and then the 8 turned sideways and it looks like Windows Infinity.
Yeah, Xbox. I remember
that. But that didn't pan out.
Okay.
And instead they decided to confuse grandparents all over the world and Xbox One. So
yeah.
I can see people say, "What happened to the Xbox 0.5 or something?"
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with Windows 10, right? Because they skipped 9. So.
Yeah, they skipped 9. That's true. Yeah. You think that was a good move, or do you think it was confusing?
I think it was a good move. I think Windows 9 sounds kind of clunky. I think Windows 10 sort of implies something of a fresher start. I think it was a good move.
Okay. All right. So
I just like the way that they explained it away, which was, this is such a momentous leap for Microsoft and all that we're doing here. We just blew right past 9 and we're doing 10.
Yeah.
It's like they just spun it. And it's like, okay, well, we'll buy that.
Put a positive spin on it.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about the mobile. Does Windows 10 make using a tablet better, or a phone, or what have you?
Well, as far as the phones go, I can't really say yet because it's not really out for phones. There is a preview version, but actually Windows 10 for phones hasn't really launched. It is Windows 10 for computers right now. And the Windows 10 for phones is supposed to be basically the same thing, but it's also not the same thing. There are a lot of tweaks required that make it work on that small screen. That's not out yet. Now, on the tablet, it's kind of a sidestep, I would say, from Windows 8.1. It works differently in some ways. For example, the way you gesture back and forth the multitask is different because you now have that task view that I was going on about earlier. But I don't know that really makes it fundamentally something that you would want to use every day if you didn't already, buy the Windows tablet experience.
All right. Okay.
Makes sense.
It does make sense. All right. So.
And I guess one more feature that we kind of danced around a little bit earlier in the interview, and Craig thinks is just the cat's pajamas, or as the Spaniards would say, the cat's pajamas, is that's Cortana.
Yeah,
is
Cortana.
finally here.
Cortana
And I'm assuming that you've had some hands-on with it. Are you finding yourself actually using it?
Well, Cortana actually has some interesting uses. Something I like a lot about it actually right now has nothing to do with the voice activation features, but it keeps track of my calendar events there, and I can just click that button, and it's right by the start menu, and it shows the weather. It shows me the weather, and it shows me everything on my calendar for today, and that's great. That's really quick and easy, and it also does a really good job of hearing what you're saying and correctly understanding, or at least correctly interpreting the words that you're saying. The problem with Cortana right now is that it's a little bit buggy. Just menu hangs, microphone's not working for some reason, and the other problem is that she doesn't really understand a lot of things you say. And whenever Cortana doesn't understand what you say, she just searches Bing, and Bing is not great. So you end up, we were laughing in the office because we were trying to find a pizza place, nearby, and you would say, this is something you would say all the time. It's like, what's the, nearest pizza place nearby? And it would just search Bing for exactly that phrase and pop up a web browser. And at that point, it's like, well, that's what's the point of Cortana then, I could have just opened the web browser and typed that in and gotten exactly the same results, except I would have used Google and it would have been better. So, that part doesn't work so well.
That blows my interpretation, because my interpretation for Cortana was going to be, Matt, is that sort of like the Star Trek image. You're using your keyboard, you're doing it, but while you're doing it, you're talking to the computer. You can say, Cortana, we'll look up something, while I'm typing on the computer. So it's sort of like a little bit of a multitask. While I'm doing one thing, Cortana can be doing something else because I'm speaking to her at the same time, which would, to me, be the ideal scenario. Are you saying that that's eventually what's going to happen, or what?
I think that's the goal. Microsoft at Build 2015 outlined how they're going to have their plans for APIs to let third-party developers, just hook right into Cortana, and you can say things to Cortana about third-party apps, and she would understand it and open them. And that would be really great if that worked. But the problem, it's the same problem with DirectX 12. This wasn't out yet, so no one is developed for it yet. Maybe it'll work better in a year, but we don't really know yet. There's nothing that's really using that except Microsoft apps.
Compare Cortana with Siri.
They do a lot of things similarly, but you can search better with Siri, I think, and Siri also integrates better with, I think, the function of your iPhone or iPad. One thing I was testing out that I noticed immediately was, Apple has Apple Music now, okay? So you can, it has iTunes, so you can say, Siri, play me Taylor Swift, and Siri will go and play you Taylor Swift. and Cortana won't do that because Cortana can't hook in to any of your music apps right now.
Would it be because Cortana doesn't like Taylor Swift? No.
It might also be that. Cortana has a lot of little jokes that she can tell you, but other than that, I mean, it's definitely a work in progress. It's one of those features where it's going to need some time, I'm sure.
Yeah, and again, Siri's been around a lot longer than Cortana. I mean,
it's been out way longer. Yeah. So, give it a few years, we'll see what happens.
Okay, all right. I will say that the Cortana voice, though, is a lot more natural sounding, more conversational. Siri's a little bit more stilted.
The Cortana voice is awesome. It's awesome. Very good. So.
Now we just got to get her to be smarter. you know, and
Yeah.
Teach her how to use more tools, because I think she's smart enough, and I've heard good things about being able to actually see or type out the words that you're using. It's just her integration just isn't there. She isn't integrated into a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Matt, I suggested this to you. We got some other questions. I want to talk about some of the articles and stories that you've written, and you agreed that you'll stick with us for the next hour as well.
Yeah. Yep. That's good.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we're enjoying your
Very kind of you.
Yes, and thank you so much for that. All right, you're listening to the Computer America show. Matthew Smith is the computing editor for Digital Trends. Now, you do call yourself Digital Trends Magazine. You are a magazine?
No, we just are Digital Trends. We're a website.
Digital Trends, the website. And we're going to talk about some of the articles that he has written, including Intel versus AMD. We're going to talk about that. And some of the other stories, SanDisk's, their 256 gigabyte 48-layer NAND memory chip. We're going to get to those stories and more. Stay tuned. We've got another hour of the Computer America show coming straight at you. We'll be right back.
This is about a cool new way to be the first to hear about new, completely unannounced products or services. The Monday through Friday Newer Than News nationwide Bell Ringers Radio Hour starts August 31st. 4 times on each show, a team of 3 pros, well, 2 pros and me, take the time to tell you all about some new something. That happens over so many stations that more than 50 million people will be able to tune it in. And that same day, releases about that debut go out on 3 major news wires to reach traditional, online, and social media, plus full coverage on SlashGear and some other goodies. Here's what we'd like to ask of you now. At the company you work for or the companies you work with, chances are that the top marketing people in top brass don't yet know about Bell Ringers. Please, just tell them to check out bellringersmedia.com. That's BELLRINGERSMEDIA.com. But hurry, September segments are booking now.
Broadcasting live, it's the only national radio talk show on computers to air every weeknight. Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. The first hour's behind us, but there's still more of tech news, tech talk, and your phone calls. We're being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. You got computer problems? Bring them on. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@computeramerica.com.
Hello and welcome into Hour 2 of the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. This is the Computer America Show, and I'm your host, Craig Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Ben.
And we continue on with our guest, Matthew Smith, has agreed to stay on with us. He's the editor of Digital Trends, and he has written many, many interesting articles, and he's agreed to stay with us to talk about some of them. The first hour, of course, we talked about Windows 10 and all the ins and outs of the new operating system that is here now.
Just real quick, for anyone watching our video portion, I have Matt up here and all the articles that he has taken part of, and it shows here on the right, the Digital Trends team articles 699. Now, does that mean you've written 699 articles, or as a team you guys have collaborated on 699 articles?
No, that's probably me. That's probably 699.
So 700, almost.
Congratulations.
Almost there. Just got to write one more. I'll get to that in the morning.
Yeah. That'll be a landmark for you. Exactly. So, but he's agreed to stay on with us. Again, if you missed any portion of the show, you can also listen to archives of Computer America. We archive everything at ComputerAmerica.com. Just select the archive pull down on our pull-down menu. It'll take you to our archives page. You'll see where you can listen to us on many of the networks, Blog Talk Radio, Apple's iTunes. It'll take you to our audio feed there. We only have the audio on Apple's iTunes. However, if you want to watch the video, you can do that. We also have our own YouTube video page where you can see the stream and watch it again, so we have that there as well. Everything having to do with Computer America and listening to it on a time-shifted basis you can do so right there at computeramerica.com. Again, Matt Smith, he's with us. He's the editor of Digital Trends Computing section of the website, and they have so many different items to talk about. But Matt himself is a writer, computing guru, gamer, and we've just going to talk about some of these things now. And the first story that I really like for you to talk a little bit about is this story. Which is Intel versus AMD. Which brand of CPU should you choose when building a PC? And can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. This is always a controversial subject. This was actually an update we did because we had this article up, I think, probably about 3 years ago, and we've been updating it intermittently over the years. But the summary is, for most people, there's really not any reason to buy anything except for Intel at this point. AMD has some advantages in some very low-cost processors sometimes, and they do have better graphics performance if you, for some reason, are interested in that but don't want to buy a video card.
Okay.
Of course, that's not a very big audience.
Yeah.
But, it is there. But it's really it's over the years, it's just grown year after year. Intel has gotten a little bit quicker. AMD has not been able to catch up, and that's really grown into a big lead at this point.
I remember when they were closer together years ago, and there were two processor companies, and but now I think you're right. I mean, Intel has certainly taken the lead, and they continue to.
Intel always had very nice price points. They had your processor and your chipset for $100, $200, $300, $400, $500. They had everything kind of set up. AMD had the very, very cheap end, and you could buy some great stuff for $75, $80, $90. And then they also went to tournaments where you would try to overclock, and AMD usually came ahead in the extreme liquid nitrogen fueled processing power, and AMD had that covered as well. But by and large, AMD had a lot of the mid price points, and does AMD do that nowadays? Do they have a decent processor for every level?
I would say not really. There's very few scenarios I can think of where the AMD processor would be the better choice at this point. They do have overclocking is still something they really talk about a lot, because they'll offer you an overclockable processor for I think $50 is their least expensive one, and they have a wide range of processors that can overclock, whereas Intel really has only a few, and except for one Pentium processor, very low down on the range. All their overclockable stuff is pretty expensive. The thing is that the gap has gotten so large that even if you get one of those cheap AMDs and you try and overclock it, you're probably still not going to catch up to the Intel. And even if you did, I mean, you had to go to a lot of effort, and you had to probably buy a nice, more expensive cooler to get there. So it's really not that great of an advantage anymore.
I would tend to agree with you again, but the thing is that it seems like the AMD really is not AMD. I mean, Intel is really ruling the field here.
For some Intel has always been doing well. AMD, they were in a slump a couple of years ago, and they were starting to sell parts of their company off, starting to sell parts of their manufacturing off, and they looked in dire straits. And then all of a sudden they got they got their contract for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and that, and as their exclusive processors, I believe, or that might have been AMD and Nvidia. I can't remember.
I believe it's mostly. I want to say it's mostly just AMD stuff.
Yeah, and they picked that up, and now they're doing okay. It's just Intel has they were doing well before, and they're still doing well now. Yeah.
Intel's just such a bigger company. It's 10 times the the size of AMD. So, and especially because researching a new processor architecture is like really expensive. You've got, all kinds of exotic processing production equipment you need to make it. You've got, very well-paid engineers that you're going to need to research it. It's not something you can do cheaply. And Intel has way more money to throw at that kind of stuff than AMD does.
Yeah, and that's absolutely correct. The so here we are. So this is the thing. Intel is really the leader at this point. They had that. Was it the 10 nanometer technology? Not that they're coming out with as well. I mean, they're so far in advance.
Yeah, the 10 nanometer has been actually delayed, it looks like. But right now they're on 14 nanometer.
Right, exactly. But still 14. You're only talking 4 nanometers difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we were talking about this yesterday. What happens when they get down to 1 nanometer? Then what do they do? I guess.
I don't know. That's becoming a very interesting question because, like I just said, 10 nanometer has been delayed. It was just recently came to light that apparently Intel's next chip line after Skylake, which is the one that's just starting to roll out now, the next one is also going to be 14 nanometer, apparently, because 10 nanometer is being delayed until like 2017 at the earliest. It's getting so hard to make these leaps that I don't know. Maybe we will get to that point where you can't do it anymore. I don't know.
Well, IBM just announced a 7 nanometer chip.
Yeah, they do have that. I'm not sure though how that's going to actually scale up to something they can produce. So we'll see.
Okay. So tell us a bit about Skylake. You call it the king of quads, but not the upgrade you waited for. Why not?
It's a very marginal upgrade over the previous processor. And by previous processor, I'm talking about the Core i7 4790K and its brother, not the couple 5000 series processors they had released just before this summer. So at that point, we're talking about processors that are between 1 and 2 years old. And Skylake comes out, it's about a 5% increase, I would say, generally, in processor performance. And, you're not going to notice that, really. You're sitting down on your computer. Even if you're running, like, things that are pretty demanding, if you're using Photoshop, if you're editing video, probably not going to notice that difference. But it is the quickest quad-core, so if you're just building a new system, then, yeah, sure, go for it.
But you're saying just if you have a computer and you like to stay up to date, this isn't really the update that you want to go for because, as you said, 5%, that might not be enough to justify, plunking down another $350 or however much it costs. In turn, you could take that money and spend it elsewhere to upgrade your computer.
Yeah, definitely. You'd have to have a chip that's probably like a Core i5 2500 or something like that old to really look at this and think this is the time to go in and upgrade.
Makes sense. And I believe also in here that they upgrade the chipset, so better RAM?
You got DDR4 now, which is kind of the de facto standard. I understand there's going to be some chips or some motherboards that still support DDR3, but we didn't use one that did. We used a DDR4 motherboard, so that's kind of nice. Although it's something that I think most people would not really notice the difference. Fortunately, DDR4 is not really priced much more expensively than DDR3, so it's not really a big deal either way. What is nice is the new chipset just has a lot of peripheral support. You can throw all kinds of hard drives on it as long as it's got the ports. It can handle it.
Well, we've always been of the mindset here at Computer America and always advise our listeners that when they're ready to buy a computer, spend as much as your wallet can stand because basically by doing that you stave off obsolescence. The newer, the faster you can buy, it's going to be around longer. And so if Skylake is you're getting ready to do a new computer system, why not go for if you can afford the Skylake and do it? Then our recommendation would be
the price points between the Skylake and the i7 4790. Okay, like the price points really aren't that. Like you mentioned, there's like a 5% increase, but the price difference between these two is like 10%. There's like $30 to $40 between the two.
The price difference between the 4790K and the 6700K is $10 at most retailers right now.
$10 well spent then.
It's going to cost a little bit more because you got an extra $10 or $20 on the RAM, and probably some extra money. I kind of said this in the review. It's like you're going to be looking at about a $30 to $60 increase probably. All said, buying that new Skylake system versus the old 4790K.
Yeah.
But when you're buying something that expensive, $30 or $60 is actually not a big increase. So.
It isn't. It isn't, and so obviously you might as well do it. And you would agree then if you're going to do that.
Yeah, if you're buying something new, you're just like, or you're dramatically redoing your rig, or you're just getting a brand new one, might as well go with the latest processor.
No, I agree. And although it's a different platform, that's what I did when I bought my new iMac. Most of them were the Core i5. I went ahead and bought the Core i7. It was the top of the line at the time, and I put the 16 gigs of RAM and bought the largest hard drive, and that's why I can still the iMac that I bought in 2000 when I buy the 2009 I think it was is still doing pretty darn good. It's still running everything. Had I done with the slower one, then it would be about time to upgrade. So I think that mentality works. I think that idea works for all platforms.
For sure.
I think it does with processors in particular because they're so mature. They are very reliable. They don't break very often. So if you get a nice, quick processor, that thing is going to last you for quite a long time.
Okay. So, again, I forgot to give out the numbers. If you have a comment or a question, we'd love to hear from you. 347-884-8881, 347-884-8881, or go to Computer America and just click on the Submit a Question, and Ben and I will answer it for you if you don't want to go on the air. It's just another way to interact with the Computer America show.
For someone who may be thinking about purchasing this, how backwards compatible is the new i7? Motherboards made in the last 3 years are going to be okay, or do you have to buy a brand new motherboard to go with this?
It is not at all backwards compatible. So it's a new socket, so you're going to need a new motherboard.
Okay.
Well,
and any idea or anything you recommend or price points of those?
As far as the motherboards go, I honestly haven't looked at enough of them to give a definitive recommendation. We had an Asus Z170 Deluxe that we used for our test system. I find Asus boards are generally very good. Another brand that's
Whoops! Did we lose? Oh, there he is. Okay, we lost you there for a second, Matt.
Oh, did you? Okay. I was saying Asus motherboards and Gigabyte motherboards tend to be very good picks.
Okay.
All right.
All right. And again, we are doing some of the stories that Matt has did recently, and again, you can see them at the Digital Trends website, and we actually have a link to them if you want to see them. But in the meantime, this next story that you did here kind of made me sit up and take notice. It's the title of it is "New Video Outlines IBM's Plan to Switch from Windows to Mac."
Yeah. That one kind of caught me off guard. I mean, it's just a news item. I saw it a few days ago. Apparently, this was actually not totally unprecedented. There was some suggestions about this, I think, back in May that I didn't remember, but I caught back up the speed on it when I saw this new story and wrote it. Apparently, yeah, they're pretty buddy right now, and it has to do actually with phones more than anything else, I guess you could say, because they're working together on things like HealthKit, which is the iPhone and Watch. Apple Watch platform for health information.
And so the purpose is what here? To move over to the Mac platform rather than having Windows-based systems?
Purpose appears to be to at least do that partially. Yeah, they were saying 50 to 75% of employees would be using Macs. That's sort of the vision, at least. And when you're talking about a company as big as IBM, which I believe has over 300,000 employees, I mean that's quite a few Macs being put out into the field there.
Didn't somebody there in their marketing department say, hey, this is not going to look too good as far as, IBM is perceived to be, a Windows-based company. Although they could have gone to OS2?
Yeah.
Yeah, way back when.
Yeah.
Their own operating system. But isn't the perception that, IBM is not confident in their own systems?
I think, I think this is just a sign that times are changing because, IBM doesn't make Windows computers anymore, at least not consumer models, and I'm like 99% confident they don't make any Windows computers anymore. They sold it all off to Lenovo.
Yes, that's true.
And Lenovo, they've been using Lenovo since then for their computer needs. They use Lenovo ThinkPads. Of course, that was IBM's brand, and Lenovo bought it. But times are changing, and Lenovo is a separate company. There's no reason why IBM has to, use their systems. They don't get any profit out of that. And this is a sign that now the things that IBM is working on, servers, supercomputers, back-end systems, cloud systems, that actually seems to have a lot more of an alignment with what Apple wants to do these days.
Maybe they had some sort of deal when they sold. It's like, hey, just to help you guys along, just to get you started, IBM will commit to, the Lenovo line and help bolster your numbers for a little bit. But after that, Apple's pretty sexy looking.
They could have had some sort of deal going on. I don't know of anything being publicly known as far as it goes, but it's definitely could have happened.
Yeah. So nothing too surprising there, but at the end of the day, it's IBM's choice, and as you're saying, they not like they make Windows computers anymore, so not exactly like they're not using their own product. Like they had a free choice.
Yeah. I think a lot of people still think of IBM as being kind of like they were when they were in the public light, and IBM as it exists today is still a huge company. They just don't really do those things that we all remember them doing back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, the big mainframe guys. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's good to know. One of the stories that you did that I'm doing for obvious reasons, as you'll see. One of the things that we do is every Friday we give away a Logitech MX Anywhere 2 wireless mouse.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and Logitech's one of our sponsors, and we do that. And looking at one of the stories is that you actually have done a review on the Logitech MX Anywhere 2 mouse, and you preface it by saying, if you hate touchpads, let us introduce you to the best mobile mouse ever made. So
yep, exactly.
Now you have to say, why are you calling it that? I mean, I understand it. I mean, it's a cool. I'm seeing features on this thing that I've never seen on any of the mouse before. But you tell us, why did you decide to write this?
And by the way, feel free to be completely honest as possible. Don't suck up to Logitech.
I will be. I actually reviewed both this MX Anywhere 2 and the MX Master mouse, which I did the review of the bigger MX Master first.
Right.
Of the two, I personally use the Anywhere 2 every day at my work computer. So that is my mouse of choice. Of all the mice that I have to use, that is the one I decide to use every day.
Ah, you see, you could have won one here on the show.
Yeah, I know, right? So there's a lot of really cool features about it. It's really easy to connect to multiple systems because it has Bluetooth and a USB dongle, and you can do a wire connection. Has a built-in battery, which lasts about 2 months on a charge, depending on how much you use it. But aside from all that, it's just a really robust, nice, luxurious thing to have in your hand and be using every day. It feels really solid, and it's very accurate, and that's what you want from a mouse. So yeah, it's a really good pick.
Well, one of the things that I liked about this mouse is that, and I've never seen it on a mouse before, is that on the underside of the mouse, there's a button that you can push that will allow you to switch on the fly different computer systems. And I have never seen a mouse to do something like that before.
Yeah, I use that because I have the USB dongle for the mouse on my desktop at work, and then I have it paired to my laptop through Bluetooth. So at the end of the day, I just take my laptop home with me, and I take the mouse home with me. And when I get home, I just press that button, and it switches over to Bluetooth, and I can just use it with my laptop. Then I get back to work, I press the button, and use it with my desktop.
Yeah, and you can do that up to actually 3 devices. It's their anywhere switch, and allows you to do that, which again I had never seen on a mouse before. Again, it works with left hand and right hand, so it is ambidextrous, I guess, in its design, and it also uses that dark field technology. So it works on just about any surface, which I think is kind of cool. Like glass.
So it levitates.
Dark field is interesting. It's always been sort of Logitech's special thing. It's really just a laser sensor, but it does work on a lot of different materials that you normally wouldn't see a sensor like that working on. So it's really handy for just a mouse that you're going to be using mobile. You can put it on a glass surface or whatever; it works fine.
Okay, so you gave it 2 thumbs up, and it's actually the mouse of your choice.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly, and its brother, the other one, the other MX Master mouse.
Yeah.
You like that as well?
Yeah, I like that one as well. It's a really good mouse. I feel that it's a little bit too fiddly for me in terms of its features because it has several extra buttons, and it's a very large mouse. But it's if you're someone that likes a lot of buttons and a lot of doohickeys on your mouse, then you probably will want to go with the Master. And it's also probably more comfortable, really, every day, a little bit.
And you're talking to Ben about that, because Ben, how many buttons on your mouse you have? I mean, so get the gaming.
I just have a basic gaming mouse which has 7, but my Craig always refers to my Naga, which had I think 17 at the time. So
yeah, one of those MMO mouse.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yep. But the one thing I will say about the Logitech and their larger mouse design is something that has always confused me. They if you're watching a video there, they actually show you using the mouse, and it has that little thumb rest kind of thing. And I always picture the thumb after a long day's work gets tired, and it just kind of flops down there on the mouse. I've never really done that. I've never been so tired that my thumb just kind of flops onto that little shelf right there. And that causes more problems than solves for me personally.
Well, I don't know if you know, but it's only a shelf. I think that it's also a button. When you push down on that shelf, it'll actually it's yet another button. I know on my mouse, I actually use the M705 that has that feature, and
doesn't seem to be a button.
Okay. Well, the one that I have is, and I actually turn it off because it's confusing.
It is a button. It is a button.
Oh, it is. Okay.
But you're right. It is confusing. It has sort of a weird feeling to it when you click it. It doesn't really feel as responsive as the other buttons on the mouse, so it doesn't really work that well in practice. So it's one of those features, which is the reason I like the Anywhere 2 more than the Master, where everywhere on the MX Anywhere, everything on the MX Anywhere 2, just it seems to be there for a purpose. That's very definitive and strong. MX Master, it has a few little features. It's kind of I don't know why. I don't know if it was really necessary. I guess that's okay, but it kind of gets in the way, etc., etc.
At the end of the day, you're why'd they add this? And then of course they say for luxury.
Well, yeah, and it also costs $100, so You did sort of throw the kitchen sink at it.
But one of the things that I really like about the Logitech mouse is the scroll wheel. I mean, when they first came out with that, I was told by Logitech that it took like their engineers like 3 years to develop the scroll wheel that's on these mice because it's that.
You talking like the smooth versus the ratchet?
Yeah.
You can switch between ratchet and smooth. You can do that with a push of a button, but on the mouse. But the point is, when it's on smooth, I mean, I can scroll down, 10, 15 pages with one zip. It's just really, really nice. It allows you to navigate through copious quantities of pages in just a moment. So I don't know if you use it.
See, now I feel bad because it took someone 3 years to do it, and I turn it on and I just play with it. I just see how fast I can get it to spin.
Yeah, I used to use the ratchet mode as well.
Mm-hmm.
I find the free spinning mode a little bit too sensitive for my taste, so I tend to go with the ratchet mode.
Well, you can adjust the sensitivity of that too, and the Logitech control.
But who has time?
Yeah, you can actually adjust the sensitivity of the scroll wheel. So if you want to make it less sensitive, they in the Logitech control panel, they offer the control. They call it the Logitech Control Center, the LCC. You can control, but I leave it on the default because again, I just like zipping through when I want to see lots of different places. But anyway, so again, you wrote that review and you liked that. You gave it a thumbs up. Exactly.
Yeah, I think it got an editor's choice. So that's pretty much the best we can give.
Right. And also when I'll tell you what, we're up against the break, so why don't we just go with that and then we'll continue on, okay? Matt, we're talking to Matt from Digital Trends, Matt Smith. He is the editor of Digital Trends Computing section, and we're going to just pause here for a little bit, and then we'll come back. You're going to hear another News Tips Bulletin review.
Of course, now that I think about it, Digital Trends Computing section, the others are like food, lifestyle.
Yeah.
The other sections I'm sure are equally as important. It just seems like the computing section is the meat of Digital Trends.
It seems to be that way.
Don't forget mobile.
Mobile.
All right. All right. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Computer America Show. Don't go anywhere.
I need a favor. You may not have anything to do with launching new products or new services at the company you work for or the companies you work with. So just in case the people there who are in charge of that aren't listening to Computer America tonight, please tell them about Bell Ringers. It starts August 31st as an hour-long Monday through Friday nationwide radio show on so many stations that more than 50 million people will be able to tune it in. 4 times each hour, a team of 3 takes the time to fully describe and explain something that's never been announced before, making it newer than news. And that same day, they send releases over 3 wires to traditional, online, and social media. Get full coverage on Slash Gear and more. Please, just ask those marketing guys to take a look at BellRingersMedia.com. That's BellRingersMedia.com. BellRingersMedia.com. But hurry, September segments are booking now. Thanks.
Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. You have important meetings to schedule. Your company's getting ready for its IPO, and you're in charge of the PTA fundraiser this month. So how do you coordinate everyone to be available at the same time? Are you still using emails, phone calls, even text messages to schedule meetings with a group of people? How's that working out for you? That's so great, huh? It's a fact that every day, millions of people suffer from scheduling headaches. Well, with Doodle, scheduling meetings with a group of people is quick and easy. With Doodle, you can easily propose available times to each member. Each one checks off the times that they are available, and then you simply pick the time that works best for the group, all in an easy-to-read display that integrates with your existing calendar. Nothing could be more simple. Give Doodle a try for free, and like millions of Doodle users, you'll truly see how easy it is to find the perfect date and time for all your meetings. That's www.doodle.com.
Can't get enough of me, huh? Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America, this time the Ryobi Electric Pressure Washer. The snow itself is gone, but it's always a slovenly guest, leaving behind a lot to clean up. So we got in a Ryobi RY14122 electric pressure washer last spring. The power plug head is oversized to house safety measures, yet still handy enough to fit the unit's cord wrap posts, one of which pivots so it's easy to remove the entire length of cord at once. The screen-filtered water hose connector up front has a spinning sleeve thing that helps hose handling happen easily. There's a turbo nozzle and pattern heads that exchange easily to adjust the spray pattern, and the nozzle handle has an angled trigger grip for easy one-handed use, plus a barrel grip for even more precise aiming. A top cap accepts liquid soap for wash then rinse use. We like the convenience of an electric unit and its 1700 psi. That's 1.2 gallons per minute pace is plenty for what we want to do. If you need more, Ryobi does offer beefier gasoline-powered models. Bottom line, we found the Ryobi RY14122 electric pressure washer powerful enough to clear winter crud off the driveway, but gentle enough to also get some off the car. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. 33 minutes past the hour. That was Marty Winston with a News Tip Bulletin review of that pressure washer. Seemed like a very, very nice one.
High-tech pressure washer.
High-tech pressure washer, yes. And, so we are talking to Mr. Matt Smith, Digital Trends. He is the editor for the computer section. And, yeah, we're just going over articles he's written over the past couple days. Very prolific, as you can probably tell, as we've already covered, probably about 5 or 6 different articles, and we just went back about 3 days. So, you obviously do a lot in this area.
Yeah, it does keep me busy. I'm fine with that.
Perfect. And so we just finished with the last one. Actually, kind of drawn a blank on what it was, but
yes. I want to do the story that you selected, the gaming.
Yes, I'm looking forward to this one, as Craig is so often so ready to point out, is that I am a geek and I enjoy video games, and you wrote a comprehensive article here about what should go into a gaming rig.
And what matters? You actually titled it "What Matters" in parentheses and what doesn't matter when buying a gaming desktop. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, I just wanted to sum up the major bullet points you really need to look for when you're buying a gaming desktop, because really it just boils down to some pretty simple stuff. And that is that you need to have a processor that's good enough, you need to have a video card that's good enough, and you need to have enough RAM. And for the processor, you basically just buy an Intel Quad. Job done there. For the video card, you try and look for something. It depends on what your resolution is, but at least 2 gigabytes of RAM, something like a GTX 960. 4 gigabytes is a bit safer for future proofing. And for the RAM, probably just 16 gigabytes. You can call it a day there, and that's pretty much it. Not making it too complex. I think that especially the RAM is sort of the interesting issue, because I always get into it with people about that. Because for some reason there are some gamers that just swear you need 32 gigabytes of RAM. Or just people in general is like, you need to have 32 gigabytes of RAM in your system. You need to buy that. And it's not really true. It's a good way to save a few bucks. Does this stick with 16?
I always thought you can never have too much RAM, but I always thought that the more memory you had gave you more room to stretch your elbows out. It made things go faster, less swapping of the from the hard drive. You got things to work more smoothly. You're saying that's not the case?
Not really. RAM is kind of interesting because it tends to be a little bit like a switch, right? Having enough RAM, if you have enough RAM and you have a lot more than that, then you don't really see much of a difference there. As long as you have enough, you're good.
But what's enough?
When you don't have enough, well, it depends on the game you're ready, but when you don't have enough, then everything just gets terrible immediately.
Yeah.
because the RAM is used to put data in for short-term memory, so it can be easily accessed. And a program only needs so much of that. If you have enough of that, then you're good. If you don't have enough of it, then you're pinging off the hard drive, and that's not good.
No.
But modern games, honestly, like most modern games, you can get by with 4 gigabytes on a lot of these games. I ran an 8 gigabyte system until last year on my main gaming rig. So 16 gigabytes, that's way more than enough that you need for gaming. And there's really not any reason to spend more money than that on the RAM, especially because it's so easy to upgrade once you do need more.
All right. Well, then what? So then, what matters? I know Ben has a Titan 10.
No. Titan X, you Mac user. Titan X.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. That's the thing that matters the most generally. The video card.
Go ahead.
If you want to spend your money somewhere, the video card is generally the place to spend it.
So he has a Titan X.
For me, it's always been make sure that you have a good processor and a good graphics card, and of course, for me, I'm with Craig on this one. I always thought as much RAM as you can cram into your machine, and then just crush 2 up and sprinkle it on top, and you're good to go. But I guess if we're gonna go by yours, 16, that's what I'm running. I have no issues whatsoever, even on an older PC. But yeah, processor and graphics card. That's it.
Well, then what about the flip side of that? What about now that the cost of solid-state drives are coming down so much that you can get yourself like a 1 terabyte solid-state drive that is actually affordable? Would the increase in speed from the hard drive make a difference in these games?
It does. Unfortunately, it's not going to make enough of a difference to make you not need as much RAM, because there's still a pretty big gap in latency between RAM versus a solid-state hard drive. Mm-hmm. But you are going to see that difference in load times, certainly. Going from a mechanical disk to loading games off of a solid-state drive, it's not every game necessarily you're going to see it, but a lot of games you're going to see a really, really big increase in those load times, or a decrease in those load times.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the games that, because a lot of games don't load their entire content into memory, right? You're playing a level and then you go to the next level, and so there's a pause. So are you saying on a level by level basis, or do some games still actually in the middle of gameplay will actually require information from the hard drive?
Some games will require information from a hard drive while you are playing it. That's probably more common today than it used to be. Games like Grand Theft Auto 5, for example, that frequently loads in new textures and new objects because you have such a big world, and there's no loading screens between different parts of the world.
So then we would see a difference in performance then.
A solid-state drive versus a mechanical drive, maybe, but I believe that Eurogamer Digital Foundry did some testing on that. And at least in GTA 5, I recall they didn't find a very big difference in terms of the game performance.
Interesting, because obviously the access to a solid state drive as opposed to a mechanical drive is like 100 times, and it's way up there. But all right, I guess it depends on how the game is structured.
I think there's some complex things going on there with how the data is queued up, and yes, the latency on a solid state drive is way lower than a mechanical hard drive, but that's when you're doing like just random pings off the hard drive. When you're running the game, the game has an idea of how to tell your hardware like what's going on, so that seems to compensate for some of that latency.
Okay. All right. So then to wrap it up, the most important things on buying a gaming rig would be the processor, obviously.
The video card would be the most important, then the processor, and just as far as the RAM goes, like I said, just make sure you have enough. So probably 16 gigs on the safe side. That should pretty much do it.
And then there's a lot of nuances in there, I'm sure, with power supplies and how cool your case looks, and just little things that you're going to figure out along the way, because you don't want to slap all this stuff in there and find out that you're that you have a 400 watt power supply and everything costs is going to take about 850, and it's just going to kind of peter out. So
yeah,
but that seems to be going a little bit more in depth than this particular article. But you do make a point here that I see my friends make personally all the time. Like they do it wrong. They go out and they'll take their old system and they'll upgrade one particular part of their system and say, look how much better it's running, and they're getting marginal upgrades. And that is, if one piece of equipment is much higher in price range and of course performance, then it's just going to overshadow the other parts, and you aren't going to see the traditionally what it can do, because hey, at the end of the day, if you have a Titan X but at the same time you have 2 gigs of RAM, how much good is that really doing you?
Yeah, exactly. You definitely need a balanced approach, and that was something I was trying to emphasize in this guide. This guide was kind of written from the perspective of someone who's buying a desktop and not building it, which is why I didn't include things like the power supply, and why I talked about things like RAM, because when you buy a desktop for gaming, there are certain things that the companies like to do because they look really good on the website, right?
Yeah.
So I think Acer just announced that they're coming out with a new Skylake gaming rig in a couple months. It's going to have 64 gigabytes of RAM.
Wow.
That's entirely unnecessary. You do not need 64 gigabytes of RAM for playing any games ever in the next 10 years, probably.
Well, if you're going to play all those games in 10 years,
or maybe if you're going to play them all at once, it could come in handy. But that's just something that looks really good, and I'm trying to tell people don't fall for the marketing hype, especially because you can customize these systems from a lot of the manufacturers when you build them, and they're going to maybe have a little blurb that says, hey, we recommend that you upgrade your RAM, it's only this much more. I'm just trying to say, hold back, pick the things that really matter, and balance your system out. You'll save money that way, and you'll get the same performance.
Good to know. Good to know. I've always been on the impression that the more memory, the better. I mean, obviously, in the early days, before we only had 32-bit systems, you only could address so many. You only put so much.
You never had enough back then.
Yeah, you couldn't, and that was it. But today's 64-bit systems can address all this additional memory, and you're saying yet it's not necessary. I guess aside from gaming systems, are there other applications where memory would be of importance? Is it if you're running more than one application at the same time, and cutting and pasting from one to another, that's where the memory would come in handy? I mean, where would extra memory really make a difference?
It tends to be workstation applications, research, applications, very high-end software that's running a lot of calculations at the same time, or if you're running a lot of applications at the same time. The thing I always kind of say is that unless you are running a program that you think, oh, I have got to design my system around this program, make sure I have
enough memory. Yeah. Whoops. Did we lose you? No, there.
No, he's back.
Okay. So in other words, if you make sure that you have enough memory, but again, if you're running things like Photoshop and you're running Microsoft Office and you're running all at the same time, then that extra memory will come in handy, would it not?
You'll still probably be fine with 8 gigs, really. It's probably not going to make much of a difference. There's only so much, most programs are only going to load so much in the memory, and yeah, that extra stuff is going to come in handy every now and then. You might, have something loaded in the RAM, and then it takes a little bit less time to load, and you'll notice that every now and then. But I think RAM is overcredited
Well,
for overall system performance a lot of times.
Is that a throwback to the days before what we called the modern operating system? Because the modern operating systems today manage memory for you. It used to be you could allocate so much memory for each program. You could actually go in there, program it, and say, I want you to use so much of this memory, and you can have this much memory. And now our operating systems pretty much do all that for us. We don't even see that happening. So
yeah, no, you don't. You don't, and it's actually kind of funny because that causes that actually I think causes kind of this alarm because if you have like you can run a laptop with 4 gigabytes of RAM, fine. I have laptops that run 4 gigabytes of RAM, no problem. Now I'm going to open up my Windows Task Manager and I'm going to see it saying you're using 3.8 gigabytes of RAM, and you are, but that doesn't mean that like your system is about to choke.
okay.
It just means Windows is getting everything it can out of that. And it might be a little bit better if you had the 8. But,
Right.
if
Okay.
you're going to spend your money somewhere, I would generally spend it someplace else.
Okay, there you hear it from Matt Smith. Okay, all right, there it is. Hey, listen, we have a few more minutes, and I'd like you to spend a little time on VR headsets. I know
Yeah, there we go.
3 reasons for the first VR headsets will suck, but I'm buying one anyway.
Yeah.
You gotta support the stuff you like, even if it sucks early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
So tell us about this. Why are you going to buy one anyway, even though you think the first 3 are going to suck?
Well, I'm concerned about VR headsets because there is a classic trap of peripherals in gaming that has always been a problem with anything that comes out that's like really new and cool. Joystick, a motion controller, anything like that.
He said joystick, Ben. I said joystick. He says, "What are you talking about?"
No, joystick was way back in the day. That came out.
Right, exactly. And you don't really see too many of them sold these days because developers, they don't want to make games for a peripheral that not everyone has.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? It's a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. But if the developers don't make the games, then the people aren't going to want to buy the thing for those games because there's nothing to play. And then you just have the cost aspect, which, is a Rift going to be $300 or $400? Either way, it's going to cost as much as a brand new gaming console. And that's a lot of money to a lot of people. You got to remember, the average price of a new system is around $500 to $600. So when you're saying, hey, here's this computer peripheral, it's like $300 or $400, like you've just cut out like a lot of people. And I'm concerned that it's going to be a very small thing where it just doesn't gain the traction it needs to have all kinds of games come in and start designing for virtual reality.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that they purchase these consoles and they're big purchases, the year that they make them, and they can kind of justify it by saying, well, this console is going to last me 5, 6, 7 years. But it's harder to make that for especially new equipment that they're promising all these grand games for virtual reality. No one's not a lot of people have actually had one strapped to their face yet, and they're making a lot of buzz. But at the same time, they don't know that if they spend $300-$400 that they're going to get, in their mind, their money's worth.
Right, exactly. And that also comes down to the way technology advances. We don't know what the Rift that comes out next year is going to be like compared to the one that comes out 3 years from then. If people see that their Rift is getting outdated quickly, I think they're going to be kind of mad about that. And that could cause some detractors as well.
I saw a little bit of that with the Google Glass, and people were saying, oh yeah, it's neat and all, but the next one's promised to be a lot better, and this one kind of sucks compared to some of the other augmented reality that's already out. And this technology, for being so new, is actually developing very, very fast. It's the finished consumer product that you can buy go into Best Buy, check it out, and then go home and order it online. That is taking a long time to finally get to market, but the technology behind it's advancing by leaps and bounds every year.
Here's another thing, Matt. We cover computer news and everything that we do here on the show, and I haven't heard anything about Google. It used to be everywhere you was Google Glass. Google Glass, Google Glass.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't heard anything about one story on
They have a
Google
new
Glass.
version out.
They do. Allegedly, they're handing them out to some developers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Not really sure what it does.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, they said that Google Glass is they have a new version out, but they're really trying to hand them out to developers and to office workers, not so much the general public, but for they're trying to use it as a boost to productivity more than just general amusement.
Yeah. Which is them kind of admitting that people don't want to see it on the streets, right? Like.
Yeah.
Well, we actually had one of our co-hosts, Charles Tendell, was actually purchased the Google Glass, and he was talking about it, and then he started to get people saying, is it? As people started to understand what it was, they would get not necessarily hostile toward him, but they said, is that
They get cagey.
Yeah, they said, is that on? Are you recording me? Turn it off or something.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was all these debacles that we heard about people, getting into fights and over
Movie theaters and that kind of, yeah, it was a big mess, big gray area.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think this.
But the virtual reality headsets, they're not. I doubt you're going to see people walking around on buses, wearing. Although I have heard planes and certain flights have been thinking about issuing them, but in general, they're at-home devices and for at-home amusement. It's just you say you're going to buy one, I'm probably going to buy one too because it's I'm a firm believer that this is going to be a big thing where the Kinect kind of took off, kind of didn't, and the PlayStation Motion or kind of like the wand-looking thing, and that did okay, but it left you wanting more. And I think the virtual reality at the end of the day is going to be what people were kind of hoping that was going to be, which is immersion.
Yeah.
And the other thing was we're talking VR. We're not talking about augmented reality headsets, which you could wear in the street, because now you're actually through them,
Yeah, the VR and AR, they have a weird overlap, but they also are in some ways entirely different and meant for entirely different situations.
And so you said you're going to buy one anyway. Which one are you going to buy, an AR or VR, and which one?
Oh, I'll probably just go for a Rift. That's going to come out. Pre-orders will probably be later this year, and it's definitely the most mature one. It's the one that has the highest likelihood of attracting a lot of developers. So I'll just probably go for that one. There are some pretty cool ones that are from other companies. One that always comes to mind is Star VR, which I kind of like just because it's kind of the one where they're throwing the kitchen sink at it, and it has like double the resolution and like all kinds of trackers and blah blah blah. But the Rift it's the best bet right now, I think.
Really?
What's your impression? And sorry for rushing here. I really wish we had time to talk about each one of these in depth, but 2 more minutes left. What's your impression of the HoloLens?
The HoloLens is really cool. It's very interesting how that works because it is entirely convincing in how it renders holographs in your field of view. The problem with it right now is that the field of view is very limited, which it didn't look like that in the video demos at first. You can only see sort of a square that's in front of your vision. Maybe you hold your hands out about a foot in front of your head, and then you can see like inside that square. And Microsoft has acknowledged that's a problem. They intend to try and fix it. They don't know if they're going to have it fixed anytime soon, so they said it might not be out for consumers for another 5 years. They're just not sure. But like the way it renders the holograms it's amazing. It's really looks like it's there, and it blends into the environment seamlessly. So if they can iron that out, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, one thing that everyone needs to keep in mind when they're watching these tech demos and they're watching all these, all these product releases from Microsoft, especially because they do a great job of showing off the HoloLens, but you got to realize that the people demonstrating it and the people filming it and everything, they've rehearsed that dozens upon dozens of times, and it's so choreographed down to which way they turn when they walk, how many steps they walk. Everything is choreographed down to the letter to make it look good, even though it's really, brand new technology. There's no way it could be that good.
Matt, listen, I wish we had more time, but we're 2 hours kind of flew by here.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, I want to really thank you for being with us here for both hours. Very, very interesting, and hopefully we'll have you back again. Again, Matthew Smith, Digital Trends Computing editor. Matt, thank you so very much for being with us here tonight. Fascinating stuff, and hopefully we'll have you back again soon. Okay?
That'd be great. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you take care. Have a good evening. Good night.
Thanks.
Good
You
night.
too.
Bye-bye. Okay. All right, there you go. Again, you can go to computeramerica.com, and we have the link to Digital Trends right there. You just click on it, and you can see for yourself the website, and you can see all of Matt's stories, too, listed there. And we also have a link to that at computeramerica.com. Coming up on tomorrow night's show, we're going to have Abby on the show. Now, who's Abby? Abby actually are the people who make the Abby Fine Reader. We're going to be talking OCR, optical character recognition. That's the ability for a computer to look at printed text and then literally transcribe that text into actual language, so then you can edit it. And I have to say that the OCR industry has come a very long way, Ben. I remember back in the day that when they got 70% accuracy, that was a big deal. You know, I mean, but that meant like 30% of everything it read was wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It's like 70% is a big deal, but then you're like, my name is Ben, and I like pizza, and you know, 2 of those 9 words were wrong.
Wrong, yeah. Now they're like 99.99% accuracy. They're way up there. Anyway, Abby is going to be here. I'm talking about Abby Fine Reader. Bruce Orcutt is the Vice President of Product Management and Marketing. And then the second hour, we're going to do Computer and Technology News, brought to you by Slimware Utilities, the official optimization software of Computer America. So, again, thanks to all of you for being here. Again,
60 seconds.
Thanks to Matt Smith, again, from Digital Trends Computing publication.
Very, very, very interesting articles. You should have to go check out the website, too.
Yeah, exactly. And then, again, Abby is going to be here in the first hour, Abby Fine Reader. And then in the second hour, Computer and Technology News. We had a bunch of stories. We just, of course, didn't get to them because Matt was so interesting. You know. So anyway, that about wraps it up. Again, thank you so much for being here. And Ben and I will see you here. Same bat time, same bat channel. So until tomorrow night, this is Craig Crossman hoping that your hard disk never becomes floppy. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Good night, everyone.
10 seconds. Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Okay, again, thank you all for watching the live video stream. Thanks for being here tonight. Again, Abby, Fine Reader, going to be here tomorrow night. It should be an interesting hour. OCR has come a long way, trust me. And we'll see you tomorrow. Okay? Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.